Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to be back with you on the second edition of Killing Dogman, the Spec Ops from the Deutschland. I called it that because I have my very good friend and military veteran, true American hero, Mr. Bob, with me, also known as Bigfoot in Germany. His jersey's been lifted up to the rafters for all researchers to see and admire because he's one of the best. What's up, Bob?
Oh, doing good, man. I don't know. You flatter too much, man.
I just try to be honest.
I'm just no broke down soldier, though.
So why don't you give the folks just a little bit of a background on your military history, a short summary?
Um, Army, airborne infantry, and after a failed terrorist, actually, it was a terrorist attack that me and a friend of mine stopped when I was over here on my second tour, Germany. Got sent off to SOCOM in Florida. Prior to that, it was Army aviation, and got out of the helicopters. Got them shot out from under me in Beirut one too many times, so ended up going to infantry. But after I got to SOCOM, got to go to all kinds of really cool schools. They have much bigger military training budgets than regular Army, so it was pretty cool. So I got to do SEER school, Pathfinder, air assaults, sniper school. I was getting ready to do. I actually had my choice, either Ranger School or Special Forces Q course, and got hit again, and that last one put me out. So, member of the Spec Ops community, hadn't actually got the Special Forces Green Beret yet. That's the direction I was probably going to go. But for the most of, all the other parts of the schools I'd gone through already. It was fun. Sometimes miss it today, but I'm too old. You never forget those old days, so. I think I either lost him or somebody's talking to him again. Yeah. Are you still there, D? Maybe not. So I guess it's just the big show. We were talking earlier about the first time I'd ever actually heard of the term Dogman, and they didn't call it Dogman, they called it a Dogman, and this was probably 2006. I'm guessing 2006 or early 2007. I had been a member of a pro-kill forum, because at that point I was, just kill them all, let God sort them out. And these two friends that were researchers also had two friends that were military contractors. Iraq was in full swing at that time, and everybody seemed to be at home at the time, and they'd gone up to a place that in northern Louisiana called that they termed, nicknamed Bigfoot Central, some swampy area up there. I'm not familiar with it very much, but the idea was they were gonna. The area was extremely active with Bigfoot, and they decided they wanted to try to take a body. So basically, what they had done is these two contractors had taken some of their equipment from the company, and the two researchers went in first with cameras, made lots of noise, and really tried to get all eyes on them, while the other two guys, which were actually PMC snipers, ex-Marine Corps. One of them went up a tree. The other guy went up on top of a levee behind a log, and they were doing overwatch on the two researchers. They both had FLIRs and night vision and everything else. And the guy that was up in a tree picked up a heat signature from way out there, probably 500-600 meters out. And he pulls up his rifle with the night vision on it, and what he saw was not a Bigfoot, although it was upright. They said it had the head of a German Shepherd, but it was upright. And it started sneaking in on the two researchers that were, out there making a lot of noise.
That's our Dogman, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. And so when it got to within about 100 meters of these two guys, the guy that was in the tree had the clearer shot, started opening up on it with it's called an SR-25. It's a 308 version of like an M16, match grade barrels and all that good stuff. It's a sniper rifle. And he started opening up on it, and the thing didn't move. These were guys that didn't miss. Marine Corps snipers, you don't miss. And then of course in Iraq, exactly. And then in Iraq they got a whole lot more practice. The guy in
so
the
this
tree,
this isn't some country boy out there shooting.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not just just some good hunter. Or, might be a good shot in his neck of the woods. These are school trained. Best of the best, right?
Yes, sir.
But the guy in the tree, he put 30 rounds through this thing and was swapping magazines when the other guy opened up on it, and the thing is just standing there. Just like standing there, right? Just taking the hits.
Oh my goodness, dude! That's
standing there.
We talked about this off air, and that's what we got caught up talking and all that stuff. But that's when I say, yeah, they got to hear this, because that's terrifying to me. I'm not afraid of these things, but
that's weird stuff, though.
That's not a physical creature, dude.
It can't be.
It can't be.
But there's another story that kind of goes along with this that probably happened at about the same time on the other side of the country, that would lead someone to believe that it is physical. And yet I'll get to that anyway. So the second guy, he's behind this log up on top of this levee. He gets up like up on a knee and starts opening up on this thing. The guy in the tree gets his mags changed, and they start opening up. So now we got two guys that are precision shooters, just freaking dumping lead into this thing, and it chose to walk away, upright. It walked away. It didn't run. It didn't falter. It didn't stumble because it's taken too many hits. It just freaking walked away.
Alive with the high caliber bullet, like
308.
Well, I'm tired of standing here where all these bullets hit me. I think
I'll leave.
I think I'll leave. I'm done. I'm done with the bullets now. Have a good day.
Yeah. So the guy in the tree, he radioed everybody, and rally around the tree that he was up in, and they said the heck with the body. They got the hell out of there. And it's just like, and as he's explaining this, he says, he says it was weird because it was upright like a Bigfoot, but its head was like a German Shepherd. And so he says it was like, he goes, it was like a dog man, two separate words, a dog man. Now, whether or not these guys actually coined the term dog man back then or not, I don't know. I had never heard of a dog man before. And when I'm reading this, and we're hot and heavy in this conversation on the keyboards back and forth, I was like, oh, come on, guys, really? We got Bigfoot out there. That's not enough. We got to have some freaking upright canine.
Right. And I think that's the thing that scares people, bro, is the whole canine aspect to it. You know what I mean?
They're predators.
They are.
Major predators.
But there's evidence, though, that the upright walking physical. Now, I'm going to make that distinction. The upright walking physical dogman has been seen eating berries. They could be omnivorous. We don't know, but
like a fox is.
Absolutely
like crazy
for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, just like we were saying off air, we call them the Fae or the others, or I call them the adversary. I mean, and this has been a big debate on this channel since this channel's inception. Yeah, but I'll say it again to whoop this dead horse in the glue. There's a big difference between these physical animals, these beasts, and something out there that does have a physicality to it.
Yeah.
but it's
physicality, but
yes, a
seems
physicality.
to be able to just like melt into the vegetation and disappear as well,
And come from the vegetation.
and come from the vegetation. And that's the very specific point. You know, when we talk about the Fae, is that the old Irish and Celtic traditions were regarding these creatures is that they came from the vegetation, as in, like, you know, tall grass, and suddenly this thing appears out of grass or out of a bush that you can see through. And I've actually had that happen to me right here and right there on the edge of the village. It was a bush that was, I mean, you could see through it. It's like right through it. It basically sticks with these tiny little leaves on it, and it was, you know, just sparse, I don't know, 8 or 10 sticks with these little leaves on it, and this thing materialized in front of me. I got a great picture of it on my phone because my dog was after another one, and this thing just materialized in front of me, and I snapped a picture, and I wish I had had it on video mode, but I was just taking photos. And it saw me, I snapped a picture, it turned and ran down into this creek bed that I was standing next to, and took off down the creek at like supernatural speed.
That's another thing.
It's amazing because the whole thing is made of sticks. Like the face, the texture. I've showed you that one. I don't know if you have the ability to throw it up on the.
I'd have to look for it, but yeah, I'll definitely.
Yeah, it's an amazing photo. But it's got this weird, like, triangular shaped head. You know, eyes are clearly visible, but the whole head is made of sticks. So it hadn't fully become physical at that point, I guess, is one way of putting it. But it came out of a bush that you could see through. There were no spots in this bush where you know that you couldn't see through it, like, you know, maybe it was hiding behind just this one little section of the bush or something.
Yeah, it wasn't just thick vegetation.
Not at all. In fact, it was like really, wow, that was really freaky. That was really, really freaky.
So for any moron that wants to go out there and hunt one of these things on their own with their granddaddy's borrowed rifle,
I wouldn't know.
But what advice would you give the atypical idiot who said, "Oh, I'm going to go"? Speaking of, there was a person who he's laughing because he knows who I'm talking about. There was a person that wrote, I don't know how many page manifesto that said that I was the spiritual general of this manifesto, that I help inspire this person to put together a team to go hunt Dogman. And
really?
Yes.
Oh boy.
I told
it's all your fault, D.
Yeah, of course. I told this person, please do not pay me that honor. Don't put my name anywhere on anything talking about killing one of these things, because if they find that in your apartment, once you turn up missing, my name's going to be involved.
Yeah, now you're going to get the FBI and
yeah, no doubt. Mr. Doss, we found this diary with your name written all over it, talking about killing a dog man. I don't know what a dog man is.
Is that a man with a dog, or?
Yeah, this channel's for entertainment purposes only. Good day, sir. But in all seriousness, if you find yourself in this position, you've heard me say it since the very beginning, especially after I saw what I know now is one of these ethereal beings that somehow physically manifested. I've come to that conclusion. What I saw out there in the woods was too supernatural. The feeling that it drug with it, me feeling it before I even knew what was going on. I was going through my atypical routine. I smoked a Marlboro Red, took in the atmosphere well within the confines of my vehicle, my safety blanket, before I even thought about stepping out. And here comes this thing sounding like a popcorn machine. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yes, I do.
It was a wicked thing, dude.
Yeah, I've heard that machine before. Yeah. Man. As a matter of fact, I have it on video. But what was weird is it sounded like it was coming from above me.
I'm glad you mentioned
the sky. I was like, what in the heck is that? I kept looking up with the camera, and I'd just been zapped, so I wasn't thinking quite straight. But it went from sounding like a popcorn machine to like an 800-pound woodpecker to a frickin' jackhammer.
Yeah, wow.
And it didn't stop until I turned around and started heading back out of the woods.
Well, I
Then
was
it
still in the
stopped.
vehicle, and this thing was like the way it was breathing. It was all weird. It sounded like an old smoker and stuff.
Yeah.
The physiology of it wasn't. I can't make sense of it. It didn't make any sense seeing it, and even now after a year, looking back on it, like now that it doesn't give me as much anxiety. Somebody just asked me, have I ever gone into description? And yes, it's on one of Miss Shannon LeGrow's Into the Phrase episodes. And after that, like literally when I got off that phone call with her, I looked at my girlfriend at the time and told her, like, I'm never doing that again. I'm never talking about that. Because it's
Yeah.
terrifying, man. Like,
Yeah.
that was like seeing that alpha male. And we've talked about that on air and off air. This thing, the fright that it put into me, it made the alpha male look like the good humor man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wouldn't mess with that. I wouldn't mess with that alpha male down there in Brown Springs, dude. If I saw it, I would immediately and slowly walk back to my vehicle like I never saw anything, casually get in it, and peel out and leave.
Honestly, that's probably the best piece of advice that I could give is to pretend you didn't see it. Just turn around and I call it playing dumb old country boy.
Yeah. There you
I've
go.
been growled at. I've had things thrown at me, and I just like, somebody throws one of them throws a rock at me or something. I'll look at the rock and I'll look up in the sky like, I wonder where this came from. I know exactly where it came from. I saw the trajectory coming in, but I'll just keep on walking and just, maybe point the camera in that direction and as I'm walking.
Right. Like, yeah, as you're looking around, where's that coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Just play dumb old country boy.
And you'll get some amazing shots doing that.
I have had so many close encounters because of that.
But
they get pissed.
They do get pissed. But you had it to the same extent that I did in your area, where they were pretty familiar with you, they tolerated you, and you could actually they knew you were looking for them and looking at them.
Yeah, except for one, he didn't like me so much. But
was that Big Red?
Big Red. He really didn't like me. But he was the only one that was that reddish auburn color too. And from what I hear, they're a little short fused.
Yeah, they're a whole lot more intolerant of us than the rest of them. Yeah. And that's one of the old school ideas that I do agree with. There's something going on with the reddish colored ones.
But he was different, so he had the typical auburn, stringy red hair on him, but he had pointed ears that were on the side of his head, not on the top of his head. His ears were pointed; they went above the top of his head, and flat faced. But he had hair on his face, like all over his face, like a yellow lab. This short, tiny, little short, fine hair that completely covered his whole face, about the same color as a yellow lab too.
Huh.
So, strange looking critter. I mean, he really was.
You got some weird looking stuff over there.
I'm telling you. Oh, there is so much
with pointed like pit bull ears.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really odd. He's an odd one.
I see a lot of people in chat talking about copper. Incidentally, I watched a movie last night called Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, right?
It's a funny one. I like that.
I do like that movie. It's actually cool. But it went into something. This guy who's training him said that it goes back into the biblical account of Judas betraying Jesus, and silver became cursed it became a curse to the cursed. And that's where it spawns from, that, silver can hurt.
Silver bullet. Yeah. Silver bullet to werewolves. And
honestly, bro, I don't know if it'd be a too bad of an idea to go ahead and dip some, some hollow points or something. I go Full Metal Jacket, but to dip some in some like silver, because
actually I would go straight up. Barnes is the name of the company, but there's a couple others that make them also, because there's certain states in the U.S. that you can't use lead-based ammo, California being one of them. So you can use steel shot for, duck hunting and stuff like that. But any place where there's what they consider the condor range, the big ugly vulture type birds, God, they're ugly. You can't use a lead-based ammo, because if you shoot one, say you shoot a pig or something and it gets away from you and dies later, the condor flies down, sees the body, and munch, 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 and it might eat the lead bullet. So you're not allowed to use lead-based ammunition within the Condor Range, which is pretty much most of Central California. So there are companies out there that make only straight-up copper. Barnes bullets is one of them. They're loaded by federal ammunition, loads Barnes bullets, and they are unbelievably accurate. That is a that is a great round. Straight copper, just straight copper.
So you think copper, and that's what a lot of people are saying. What about silver nitrate? I've heard of somebody putting that inside of a white phosphorus grenade.
That would be interesting. The only thing I've
raising hell.
Well, the only experience that I've had with silver nitrate was they use it to weld skin. So if you've got like a wound, let's say you've got diabetes on your legs and stuff, you know, you've got a wound that won't heal. Silver nitrate is one of the things that they use to disinfect and like literally weld the wound closed. Now mercury, on the other hand, you know, quicksilver. I've never done it. You know, I always had enough toys from the army that I didn't need to do it. But you know, supposedly the extra weight and the extra density inside a hollow point, it literally causes the bullet to explode.
So
personally, I don't know. It might throw it depends on how far your shot is. You know,
and it depends on what we're dealing with too. Just like you said,
those
guys are like. And how would you know the difference? To me,
there you go. Because they look at this thing, and you know it's throwing a heat signature. They picked it up on FLIR first, so it has a heat signature. That would suggest that it's physical. And yet, you know, rain down on 308s didn't do anything to it. Now I told you there was another story, and if you do the oh God, what's his name? George Knapp he's done several lectures on Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
When the family first moved out there, in fact, they were in the process of moving out there. They'd had their livestock there. They raised some super prized cattle, and they showed up with another load of stuff. This really, really large wolf, I think they said it was 5 to 6 feet at the shoulder, comes walking down, you know, across the field right up to them, and was completely and totally, like, you know, docile, I guess would be the proper word for it. And there was a calf, one of the calves had stuck its head out through the fence, and this wolf, in air quotes, attacked the calf. The father, you know, reaches in the pickup truck, pulls out a pistol, and starts shooting this wolf, and it does absolutely no damage to it at all.
No reaction, nothing.
Nothing, absolutely nothing to it. Opa, his dad, he dumps a clip into this thing from a handgun. Nothing. Runs in the house, grabs a heavy caliber rifle, gets up close, and shoots it again. And this time a big chunk of flesh comes off of it. It turns and looks at the grandpa, and then just walks away.
Yep.
But the calf got killed, but it walked away.
And it shot like a chunk out of it, and the blood trail stopped its head. So
exactly. And the smell of that chunk of flesh was like rotted meat.
And how many times have we both heard through your vast experience in the field and talking to other researchers? How many times have you heard I've smelled it myself.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
I thought it was a gland that maybe they could emit that smell, but I couldn't wrap my mind around it because it didn't smell like a skunk or anything. It smelled like a railroad bum. It smelled like piss and blood and just
heavy duty urine is what I smelled.
Bunk, just Back in the day, they called it funky.
Yeah.
Now funky like James Brown.
Well, the whole idea of this, that it's a gland thing comes from the original idea that this is some kind of an ape. Apparently, gorillas have some gland under their armpit that, when they get stressed out, it's or so I've heard. I've never actually done any research into it, because what I saw that night, that was not an ape. That was some cave woman, but supposedly they've got a gland under their arm that when they're stressed, it releases this extremely bad smell. And so that's where this idea comes from, that, Bigfoot has a gland under their arm.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's all theory. No one has a body, so how do we know?
Even if it does, okay, let's say it does. Let's say that there's an absolute gland underneath their arm. We're still talking about pears and tomatoes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
There's stuff out there that's making itself look like one of these physical creatures, but it's simply not. There's no way it could be.
And yet, at the same time, it can become completely physical.
Right. Yeah, they go from a metaphysical type being to a physical being. Yeah. And when people put their religious aspect on it, it seems like, oh, well, it's the Nephilim, and then that's
or it's a demon, or it's
a demon, Nephilim, this or that. But nobody's really doing any kind of like biblical research or studying when they just throw that kind of stuff out there. To me, the only being in the Bible, or the only beings, plural, in the Bible that went from a metaphysical to a physical state and vice versa, are angels and devils.
Yep, angels and devils. That's it.
To which a lot of people would argue the fallen, that would be one and the same.
Right, which actually follows into the same context as the Fae, and their original idea that they were, they fell from the sky, and basically at some point God said, okay, freeze, and wherever they were, whether they were in water or on land or in the air, that's where they got stuck.
And there's been artwork for thousands of years of fairies of the tree, of the air, of the water. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And little elves with magic mushrooms, and
exactly
this whole thing. And that's where that comes from, the vegetation thing.
I believe so. I do believe so, because it's in everybody's evidence, whether they care to point it out and share it or not.
Right. Absolutely.
The craziest part about it, though, man, just like you said, I think this was 4,000 years ago in Scotland. So this is before Christ walked the earth.
Yeah.
I mean, they're talking about something out of the Judeo-Christian Bible. Yeah. That's extremely fascinating to me. And to me, it adds like a lot of validation to it.
You want to hear something really wild?
Always.
This is one of the things I learned in seminary, that it's a historical fact that when Christ actually died on the cross, that it went dark over there in the UK, Ireland, Ireland, Scotland, and
you can look that up on like some sort of what is it, astronomy or astrology?
Astronomy, astrology.
Yeah, okay.
Witchcraft stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't do that one.
Leave that stuff alone. But you can look that up on maps, because they keep somehow they can track it.
Yeah.
But you can look that up and punch in the numbers yourself, according to what the Bible says and according to even secular sources. And sure enough, the sun went black, and there was an earthquake.
Yep, and an earthquake. That's pretty wild.
That just amazes me, dude. Then people say, "Oh, the Bible's a bunch of stories. It's a collection of fairy tales.
It's a collection of fantasies." Yeah.
Yeah, that's validated by every piece of history there is. That people try to disprove stuff in the Bible, and they end up proving it, which is awesome.
Over and over again. That's funny.
It is. So, if any of you want to go out there and take it upon yourselves to kill one of these Dogman, my personal advice would be to handle it like you were a monster killer. I like it's been written about for too many years for silver bullets to harm these things, for it not to be true. I'm just going to throw that out there. It has to do something, because I'm going to lay it out online right now. I don't believe that every last one of these physical beings is some benign beast. There are what people call werewolves. I've talked to one of the
really big here.
Yeah, really big in Europe. one of the most outstanding dog, if not the most outstanding Dogman researchers of all time, Kirk Stokes. I had a really, really long, about 6-hour conversation with him about the differences between these beasts. And he's going to be coming back on here pretty soon, so he can tell you himself. But
That'd be cool.
I've heard of, and I won't say this researcher's name, but he was out in the middle of the woods in Kentucky. That's all. I'll say that much. And he saw these people in robes, and they were standing around a circle of green fire. And I found that fascinating because I talked to a Pentecostal preacher one time, and this guy, he had some stuff going for him. Like God had his hand over him. He could tell you stuff that'll just make your hair stand up about you. You know what I mean? Things that he shouldn't know, but he's a man of God. But he was saying that he got a vision of hell one time, and that the fire was green. And that just fascinated me when this researcher told me this. But anyways, he said there was like about 8 or 9 hooded beings out there. This person had stayed in the woods as low key as possible, no tent. He was eating what he could find. He went out there and he was doing it. You know, he had some backup batteries so he can get film. But he said these people standing around this green circle began chanting and swaying back and forth. And after a while, there sounded like a shotgun blast came from the middle of them. And a werewolf came from that. I mean, it looked like it was covered in fire, came from that. And that's what he said. That's how he described it. He said a werewolf came from this circle that they had in the ground and ran off into the woods.
I told you about that. There was 2 guys there where something very, very similar to that. They put their backs to the lake down there in the big thicket. A pond more than a lake.
Well,
there was a whole group of I don't remember which organization it was that was down there in the big thicket, and they broke up into 2-man teams so they could cover a lot more ground. And these 2 researchers, their area was this pond, and they said, well, you know, they set up their little blind thing with their back right up next to the shoreline of this pond, figuring, well, nothing will come from behind us and we'll have a nice view from in front of it. And as they're sitting there, a big boom happens behind them, and they, you know, in the water, they turn around, and there was like smoke or steam or whatever, just kind of materialized over the water, and out of this smoke steps a Bigfoot. It, luckily for them, it didn't walk straight towards them. It, you know, walked off to the left a little bit towards this tree that was on the side of the shore. And as it walks by, it reaches up, grabs about a 4 or 5 inch branch and just snaps it off the tree. It just kept on walking.
Wow.
That's
frightening stuff. All right. Brian Colsty, a good friend of the channel, a good friend of mine, just threw in there. He says, I'm telling you, I've researched the connection between werewolves and high-level Satanism, vampires as well. There are 2 factions that believe they can become either. He's absolutely right. There's a lot of Satanists that have become converted Christians, and they're telling all of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Stuff that they've been involved in. And these are my brothers and sisters, folks. I'm going to, and this isn't a besmirchment on anyone, but if somebody comes to me and we have a spirit, recognizes spirit, if they got the same spirit I am, I'm going to be able to tell if they're telling the truth. Bob can attest for that.
Yeah, it's funny you should say it that way, because that's the exact same thing I was saying back in like 2007. Spirit recognizes spirit.
Amen.
Yeah.
And when you got to, especially, and this is what makes me sad with a lot of my brothers and sisters, what I call pew warmers. We are in trench warfare. We're in the meat grinder. As Christians, we're in the meat grinder, folks. This is spiritual warfare at a level that I don't know the world's ever seen before.
No, and it seemed to be getting worse.
It is. When they have, I mean, God rest my mother. She died in 2001. She didn't have to live and see all the, because she loved football. She could tell a high school coach about professional football. Okay. Like, they were singing the national anthem and praying before the game and all that good stuff when she was living. Now they have simulated witchcraft rituals straight out of the Bible during the halftime shows.
Yeah.
I mean, and people can't see that.
They don't recognize it.
No, they don't recognize it. And the devil, that's, you know, a little notch in his cap, really.
Yeah.
And that's why I like getting into this portion of it. A lot of people don't talk about it. They say, oh, well, we understand that stuff's real, you know, but we need to explore this physical creature. I understand and I respect that. But there's people out there, because Dee and Bob and everybody else who does this in the public, because we do it, they're going to say, okay, well, they're doing it, I can do it too. And I implore people to go see for yourself. But there's other stuff out there besides these physical creatures.
Asher Hall just wrote about in France, was the guy that accused of being a werewolf said that the devil gave him a belt.
Yes.
The German mythology, or maybe it isn't mythology, that's where that whole werewolf thing comes from. In order to become a werewolf, according to the old German traditions, was that you had to hang a wolf in a cemetery, and you would cut a piece of the pelt, or actually cut it right off the animal, and turn that into a belt. And they would put on this belt, and poof, that's how they became a werewolf.
And
it would transform them. Weird.
The similarities, though. You look at that, and I think it may be the Hopi. I know I'm getting that wrong. Somebody's going to correct me on it. I forget what's native. Is it the Hopi that has the shaman that can transform? You know, they have to kill someone they love or something like that.
Navajos as well, but it's that whole south, all the tribes there in the Southwest, because they were all together. The Skinwalkers. Right.
And it's crazy to me when you go straight across the ocean. People that never had any contact with one another, so they tell us, are performing the same type of rituals to get the same type of results.
Yes.
I mean, I don't believe in coincidences whatsoever. I believe that's a word that doesn't even need to be in the dictionary, except for, I guess for a reference on what the word could mean, but it doesn't exist.
I haven't seen it so far.
Every time I'm involved in a quote unquote coincidence, I can rationalize in my mind, had it gone one way or another, it would have been problematic or sometimes even better.
Something. Or better. Yeah. It's interesting. And here's something I would really, not just to our brothers and sisters here on the channel, but for the folks that the Christians that are listening to it, I wish they would spread the word.
Yes.
Throughout the Western Church. So much of the Western Church is afraid of the devil.
They don't even talk about it.
They fear anything evil, blah, blah, blah. That's just like, oh my God, it's so bad because it's evil and it's going to get us, Satan's
we don't need to talk about that. We give them power when we talk about them.
Not only do we give them power, we have the power already. Luke 10:19. Okay. Luke 10:19 is our authority. Stop being afraid of the devil infiltrating your congregation or your small group or whatever. Because oh my God, they're doing yoga. It's
if that fear is there, they are there. That's
exactly.
God does not give us a spirit of fear.
That's right. And if you're living in that, knock it off.
Because it
is trench warfare. They are, but we are in trench warfare. Step up to the plate, take your authority, and tell that cast them out. Plain and simple.
Rebuke them. I mean,
you can throw them away.
Anybody, and if you have somebody, our brother Timothy told us this once, and it made him just as mad as it made me. This guy was being plagued just because he moved into a house where somebody downstairs who no longer lived there was messing around with stuff they shouldn't have been messing around with, and it just stayed and hung out because why not?
Yeah, why not? Got themselves an opening.
Yeah, and this guy, he didn't know what was going on. And he got turned down by umpteenth churches and pastors, so-called. And the ones that did want to help him were asking for money. Like, it blows my mind because every born-again believer has the power within them to deal with this stuff.
Yes. And not, I'm an old deliverance minister. It's not something like where if you remember the old Exorcist movie where you sit there and you're fighting back and forth and fighting back and forth. Oh no.
I command you to
it's quick, rebuke,
and throw them away. I mean, it's just put them out. That's just it.
Don't
The
play
power
with
is
them.
a freaking nuclear weapon.
Yes.
The authority
And they
we
will
have
obey.
is a nuke. Use it.
And God always confirms his word. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. We're just talking about old Tim. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of strength and of love and of temperance.
There
And
you
that
go.
temperance, you can use that to translate it into a sound mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
That's the King James there.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's nothing to be afraid of because they are afraid of what you have within you.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
it's,
Right on the
you
money.
shall not tempt the Lord thy God either. So going back to the people who are looking at this saying, okay, D, where's the hints to kill one of these things? My hint is to defend yourself if need be, go with God. And other than that, don't go seeking these things, not to kill them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
That's asking for trouble and more trouble than what it's worth, because like we've been saying, this other stuff, the Fae, it don't matter how far you've driven into an area. They'll find a way to get to you.
They
No.
absolutely will. And you don't have to go very far.
I'll let you in on a little bit of inside baseball with me and my brother Bob. And
I'm going to be right back.
all right.
Keep talking.
I didn't know exactly what was taking place with me during, because I received what they call the baptism, what the Holy Book calls the baptism in the Holy Ghost. Okay. I didn't really understand it because I didn't have fellowship at the time, but I believe that it was pertinent for it to happen when it did and how it did. Most of you know my story. I've seen these wicked creatures walking around my house, 3-dimensional black figures walking up and down the halls like they paid rent, and they just bathed everyone in the home with fear. I was the last one to see them. I shrugged it off, but while I was shrugging it off, I was being crippled by sleep paralysis, which I do believe now is nothing more than a demonic attack. When I received that Holy Spirit, the Lord opened up something in me to help people who are plagued by this kind of stuff. And a gentleman named Larry, he went out into the field with me. It was him and I that got within 15 feet of one of these physical creatures, and we had no fear. We were being watched by 4 other people about 50 yards away who were guiding us by yelling, hey, you need to turn left. It's right ahead of you. They were watching on FLIR as we were approaching this thing. And it simply stood up and walked about 10 feet back and hunkered back down. But there was I was really wanting to go walk up to it. Larry James is the gentleman's name. Great guy. He's also in delivery ministry. Bob can tell you there was a lot of people that have been involved with this channel, and they're not involved now. I still love them. They're great people, but it seems like God's kind of been moving people out and moving people in to prepare me, because this is a battle, and there's a lot of people that and that you've heard on different shows before that have contacted me, not wanting a show, but wanting to understand why their dishes are being thrown out of their cabinets just because they saw a Dogman. They didn't see a Dogman, folks. They get interested to the point where they're putting this field and their interest in this field in front of their worship of the one true God.
Yep. Absolutely.
And folks, that is worshiping a false God. What we call gifting, they could take it as what's the word?
Tribute.
Paying tribute.
Just like you would to any just like they did back in the old days, whether it's believing fruit or a sacrifice or whatever to some false god on an altar somewhere. It's the exact same practice.
So just be consciously aware in your mind.
Don't
what you're doing.
Anything.
No, don't
they may have touched.
Especially if it sticks out to you, if it doesn't belong, if it's some sort of a weird looking ruby or diamond.
You walk back to your truck and there's a piece of quartz crystal on your hood or something. Don't even touch it. Just knock it off and leave.
Absolutely. And
there's probably a whole bunch of folks in chat going, "Oh crap!" But I picked up that, and that whatchamacallit, and I brought it home. Yeah.
And speaking of that, there was this, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. I had an ex-girlfriend who went out to the field with me once. She never really was. She knew about him. She's seen him with me, but she had this odd indifference to it, which just blew my mind because we're seeing things that aren't supposed to be real within
My
a
wife
2-minute
is
drive
the
of our
same
house.
way. My wife is the same way.
You know
She's
what I
like,
mean?
yeah.
It
She goes, yeah,
amazes
okay,
me.
they exist, you know. Like,
Yeah, they're
oh my
real.
God.
No big deal.
Yeah, you know, it's like her sister's like that too. It's like, really?
But the only difference, though, is your wife has a firm foundation in her
Yes.
faith.
Yes.
You know, unfortunately, my girlfriend didn't, and I did. Two cannot walk together unless in agreement.
Yep.
And they used this and took advantage of it. They being the adversary, the others, the fae. And we got home that night, and this is when we caught this strange white physical face, Barry
The
Brown
glowing
and myself,
head.
the glowing head. And this was
Yeah.
physical. When we saw it, it was physical. I could see its facial expression changing. It was smiling at us, and there was just a creepy atmosphere. It was one of those times we pulled
It's so
in.
weird.
It is. It crawls all over you like lice.
Yeah,
It's weird.
it does. It makes you itch. Yeah.
I mean, like,
And I was like, when I shot that video, D, I was probably at least 200 meters away.
and we can do a whole show on that because we have
really
the
could.
exact same
I have
phenomenon.
a breakdown on my channel.
Yeah, and I was actually going to use your breakdown in mine and show people like you're looking at the same thing. This is the same phenomenon.
A continent apart. You know,
Yes,
this
sir.
is on a completely different continent, not just in a different state. I got a giant ocean between us. And the same stuff.
Yeah, and it's not similar. The same
No,
stuff.
It's exactly.
Brian Colsey threw another good one in there. Be not unequally yoked, and
There you go.
unfortunately, we were. And
Yeah.
I believe they took advantage of it. And this, I'll make it short and spin it back around into this delivery ministry. You know, my ex-girlfriend was trying to just pick an argument, which was out of her character. You know, she was very, she was cool as a cucumber. She'd rather sit and have a discussion. That's why, you know, we lasted so long. But it was overt. She was just trying to pick an argument out about things that she doesn't even care about. And for whatever reason, I was just bathed with peace. And I didn't have to engage it at all. I just smiled and got up and went to the next room. She came in and sat down with me on the couch. She had some strange smile on her face, and I looked right into her eye. And I kid you not, I can close my eyes and see it. It looked like it filled with black ink, and the atmosphere in the entire room changed. And after that, it gets sketchy. But by the end of it, she was crying and said there was a tornado around me.
That's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I believe she saw the Holy Spirit. Yeah. You know, it's kind of like sitting on daddy's lap when you're a little kid and you think you're driving, but he's actually controlling the vehicle.
Yeah.
And this isn't within, I mean, the only thing that I did was humble myself, you know, and cry out to him. I didn't have to be, what's the word, confirmed, or it didn't happen in a church. When I received the baptism in the Holy Spirit, I was in my home. Seeing things walking around that weren't supposed to be there, and out of fear, and I put that pride and everything else away, and ego and my fleshly knowledge of the world, because I didn't know what was taking place.
Yeah. Yeah, the shadow people kind of suck, don't they?
Yes, they absolutely do.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the very next day, and this is this unequally yoked that he threw in there. This is where this comes in. You know, I got the whole household up. We prayed, blessed the home. And I asked her, did she accept the Lord Jesus Christ as her personal savior? And she literally said in this tone, yeah, with the coldest stare in her eye. Like, it frightened me. And I'm 6 feet tall, 200 some odd pounds. I could pick up a bull. Like, this frightened me. But like you say, you can't be with somebody who does not. And I know there are people that do it. I'm not saying what you can and can't do. I can't personally be with somebody who's not living their life 100% for the Lord.
Yeah, it don't work.
Well, I know Paul
for some
said,
folks
you know,
it does.
It does. And Paul said that we should, because that's just another opportunity for the Lord to reach into a pagan life. I understand all that, but I'm just a stubborn old country boy, I guess. Ain't no atheist in the foxholes. You're exactly right, Rodney.
Or at sea. Or at sea.
Or at sea. There you go. And I mean, it's when we say this, folks, it's not something cute that a Christian say. It's spiritual warfare. And I like the way he's a pastor named Pastor Prince. He's a delivery minister as well, I believe. Derek Prince. His description. was and I don't agree with everything he says. This isn't an overall endorsement of the man, but he brought a lot of people to Christ. And when he described a demon, it clicked for me. He's absolutely right. He says a demon is a person without a body.
That's basically it. Yeah.
That's basically it. You know, and they're nefarious. They hate your guts, especially if you're a born again believer.
Oh yeah.
If you're just some piddly, pew warmer daydreaming until the football game comes on Sunday, they're not too much worried about you. But if you've had an encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ that's changed the way you feel on the inside and who you are tremendously, where people are looking at you saying, wow, you even look different. They hate your guts and they'll stop at nothing.
Yeah. That absolutely. I've actually been involved with deliverances where I almost didn't recognize the person after the unclean spirit was thrown out. I mean, literally, their entire facial structure completely changed. It was wild.
And I've seen that people have sent me pictures, and I think one of them's in the chat right now, of people that their lives have just been turned upside down. They had everything laid at their feet, and for whatever reason, they couldn't pinpoint it. They sent me a picture of them, and you can see them you could see something within them. Yeah. It's in their eyes. There's this emptiness and a darkness that's not supposed to be there.
I have it's a theory or a hypothesis, actually. There's something going on with our cameras, which is why we're able to catch so much of what we do, especially if we're shooting digital video. Right. That it's able to see more than our eyes can, and is somehow able to translate that into a picture that we can actually see.
I want to add on to that theory. I agree with that, but I'll take it a step further, and this goes into what Tesla was saying. I don't believe it's necessarily the camera, because I've been in people's homes before and taken pictures and showed them what has been plaguing them. Mm-hmm. Hand it to them and they can't do it.
They can't see it.
Yeah, they can't see it, and they can't get it on film.
That was another thing that I was doing.
I believe that we're some sort of conduits. I believe that when we receive the true Holy Ghost, there's electricity within the body, enough to power a light bulb, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's what we run on.
God is light. I believe that there's some sort of tweak that happens to that electrical base within us, something different. And maybe it's affecting these electronic, devices.
I did quite a few experiments in that area, because I could look at something and totally see it. Not a problem. My wife could see it. Her sister could see it. Her son couldn't. And other people couldn't. And I'm like, do I have to circle it for you? I mean, it's like standing right there. Hello. Right. And people could not see it. And so I'm like wondering, why is it that half the people can see it and half the people can't?
That's a strange parallel.
So I started doing some experiments in the field with this. And one of the experiments that I did was I took my sister-in-law out and I gave her a camera, told her what she should expect to see or expect to get on camera. And then I put in my own head, this is what I'm looking for. And we scanned the exact same space. And I got Bubba. She didn't. She got something else.
There you go.
So that picture of Bubba,
for well over a decade. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, 13 years.
Been there. Yeah, you've been there, done that. You know what I mean? And
it wasn't really until the last 2 years where this, because I was chasing an antique Chinese monkey,
right?
For the first 11 years. It was the last 2 that I said, okay, enough of this, because I'm not getting anywhere with this, and I'm starting to really start to see this, some strange stuff going on. That I said, okay, no matter where the evidence leads, I'm going to follow it.
Amen. And
as soon as I did, things opened up.
That's pertinent for whatever your religious belief may be. I'm not a religious man, believe it or not, but wherever you choose to place your faith, you're doing a disservice to yourself and this entire field if you don't follow the evidence. You
No
know,
matter where it leads.
no matter where it leads. And you can listen to the very first show that I did, recorded on a phone held up to a microphone on my computer with me and Kirk Stokes. And just from the short amount of time I'd been in the field, I was still saying then, over 2 years ago, that there is an absolute difference. There's something out there that's not physical, and there's something out there that is physical, because that's what I was seeing in my evidence. And it wasn't until months later where, you know, some of the big dogs were hearing it, and they were like, yeah, D, we enjoy your stuff. You got the right mindset and right heart, but you know, we all see that stuff, but it's going to do you a whole lot better. You're going to go a whole lot further if you leave the ghostly type stuff alone. I'm like,
yeah, but it's there. What do I do with it?
What do I do? Like, lots of them? I mean,
yeah. Oh no, you're just supposed to ignore that part and look for that.
Ignore that part, destroy that evidence, and pretend you never saw it.
Yep. Yeah. Just go follow that antique Chinese monkey that, you know, that supposedly lived from, you know, what is it, 35,000 years ago, that, you know, they've got a full mock-up of this thing, and all they've got is a few teeth and like a quarter of the lower jawbone. Who's to say that wasn't one of the giants?
Absolutely.
We don't have the skull. We don't know what the nose looked like. You know, we don't even know if it had a sloped head.
The devil and his minions, they can't create nothing. All right. They're not creators. There's only one creator. And even with this cloning stuff, God's hands it's involved. I don't want to get into all that, but like, I truly believe that.
Just give them enough rope, they'll hang themselves.
Absolutely. And with this stuff, and we can go into all the craziness of it, but with the Dogman creature, especially now with the Dogman, it's blowing up. It's trending.
It is well, it's not only blowing up, it's also getting there's more of them. It just seems like there's a heck of a lot more. I don't know if it's because there's more, because it's trendy, there's more people out there looking for it, and therefore they're finding it, or if there really is more cryptids out there than there used to be, say, 5 years ago. Because I mean, we've got them in Los Angeles, in the city, you know, Topanga Canyon, which is the canyon that goes from the valley over towards Malibu Beach. It's just this little strip of twisty turny road that goes up and over the hill. From on the valley side, it's where all the stilt houses and stuff like that are. You go up over the ridge line, and you're going down. In fact, on the Malibu Beach side of it is where they shot most of the old TV show MASH.
Right. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about now.
We're not talking that far, just a few miles down the hill to the beach, and yet there's been probably 20, 25 Bigfoot sightings in that little strip.
And that makes no sense.
It makes no sense, because the only way that they could have gotten there is to get through the city.
Either that, or like go all the way around and then tread up the shoreline on the ocean, right?
Yeah, except that's all Malibu and Zuma Beach. It's all houses and businesses, and you know, it's a 4-lane highway there. It's PCH, Pacific Coast Highway. It's Highway 1.
Not saying that the physical.
So how the heck did they get there?
We're talking about the physical ones. Not saying that it's out of the realm of possibility, but I'm not necessarily sure that it is these physical beings.
And that very well could be. You know, and in that regards, I mean, what's your real take on Dogman? Is it like Bigfoot, where we got half of them are physical, real, just flesh and blood physical?
He was one of the coaches, as are you. I call you all the Jedi masters who trained me. Okay, he believes, and from my evidence that I've gathered, and from the good people out there like you, Sasquatch Truth,
crazy Kirsten,
tons of Kirsten over there, like she's getting amazing stuff too. And I'm going to be putting out a video leading up to the launch of the BDRP Europe this weekend, so you guys should be excited for that. It's some really, really good stuff. She's doing an outstanding job. She's getting a lot of both entities. But what I believe about the Dogman is what I said about those little girls who tried to murder their friend because the Slender Man told them to.
Right.
Slender Man was big, trending, blowing up. It's a wicked thing. You know what I mean? It's not something that I'd let my daughter play.
Yeah, no way.
But a lot of people like it.
What's that word called? The thought. It's a thought form.
Thought.
Topa or something.
A topa. Yes.
Something like that. Yeah.
Topa. It's a demon that manifests basically, from what I understand, this is just me paraphrasing. It's a demon that manifests itself into what you're interested in, into what you've given an inordinate amount of time to. I believe that a lot of this Dogman activity, because I believe they are a whole lot more rare than Bigfoot, and I believe they're a whole lot more docile than Bigfoot. But I believe that these things are taking people's interest. They're crazy interest to the point of obsession, some of them, into this Dogman thing. And you got the narrators, which I'm not beating up narrators. I'm about to launch my cryptid files again with the narrators, but they're all going to be true encounters, either that or descriptions of these beasts. The made up stories, where people are getting massacred, you know, and stuff like that. I really believe in my heart of hearts that there's these fae, the others are out there just absorbing all that energy, and they're manifesting themselves into what these people, a lot of them, are afraid of. I've talked to many people. One just recently that said, D, I like listening to this stuff because I like being afraid before I go to bed. It's like, what? You know, and I have a really good rapport with a lot of people in the narration community, and I'll talk to them a lot about this kind of stuff. And a lot of them, they it's their business whether they want to tell you or not, but a lot of them have had problems because they're digging so deep into this stuff. They're researcher like I am. They dig so deep into this stuff, they get lost in it, and then things start happening.
Yeah.
And believe me, dude, the Holy Ghost has told me a lot of this stuff, especially when I was doing the Illuminati videos. Like I was looking at, I mean, I was reading manuscripts by John Dee, the wizard that was underneath Queen Elizabeth I.
Oh yeah.
And like
the little people.
Yeah. And stuff started happening. And the Holy Spirit was like, boy, where do you think you are right now? I'm like, Lord, not where I need to be. I've gotten enough to help my brothers and sisters. That's that. I'll just close this up and delete it.
This whole idea regarding the, you know, the tulpa, though, that, you know, actually goes right back to, or not necessarily the tulpa, but the thought form that they're out there absorbing the energy, goes right back to the same experiment that I tried with my sister-in-law. We scanned the exact same tree line and got different footage. I mean, we're standing side by side so that there's not, you know, maybe I'm being able to look behind a tree and she's not, or whatever. We're standing side by side, scanning at the same speed, blah, 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 and got totally different results based on what we expected to get. Now, I mean, think about that. Identical cameras. These aren't, you know, it's not like I was using my big XA30 and she had, you know, some little rinky-dink. Identical cameras, standing next to each other, scanning the tree line. Both of us got different stuff on the footage. And if you look at that picture of Bubba, it's having a conversation with something that looks to be like upright beagle or Labrador or something, you know, kind of the floppy-eared and rounded-nosed dog that's upright. And based on the measurements, that dog thing would have been about 7.5 to 8 feet tall. But it's definitely more ethereal than Bubba is. And I've seen Bubba, you know, without the camera. So what it is, and, you know, and Bubba's got this ethereal black cat looking thing sitting on his right forearm.
You know, and in that picture, and I've seen a lot of people's stuff with these little critters that are like,
on them,
on them and crawling on them and looking at them,
especially over their back, especially on the back.
The back. I think, and a lot of people have said this, and I do agree. I haven't talked about it as much because I don't know a whole lot about it, but I believe those are like little pilot fish for these things.
It could be, or it could be like, you know, the devil and the angel sitting on your shoulder, whispering in your ear, because I've seen a lot of that too, whispering in the ear. Now, when I got hit by that orb that day, it would have, had I not suddenly turned around, it would have hit me right in the back of the neck. One of the things that I had learned in the deliverance ministry from a particular deliverance minister that was training me was that is where they attach to, because that's where all the nerve endings, the spinal column and everything that they attach right there at the base of the neck. And how many times have I gotten good, clear photos of these things with a little something on the back. And not just me. You know, look at that one, Scott Carpenter's first Dogman picture, and it's got something that looks like E.T., a small ET on the back of its neck.
Bro, one of the best pieces of Dogman footage there is. It's on the channel, and it's on Kirk Stokes 19. It's the one where I mean, it's crystal clear. He's standing up, and this thing's watching them from behind some.
Oh yes,
yep. Man, I remember when I broke that down. I actually like pointed it out to people when he first zoomed in. It happens within a second and a half, I believe. There's a little bulbous headed alien there, like a little thing. Like I mean, it looked like it was just skin. It didn't have fur. It was, I mean, its eyes were the same color as its skin, but it was a wicked looking little thing. And he notices the werewolf. I'll just call a spade. He notices the werewolf staring at him, and it's a wicked looking thing. It's crazy looking. It's got these wicked looking eyes and just snarled up. Evil.
Looks like freaking evil incarnate.
And it's standing there just staring at him because he doesn't have any kind of right to bother him whatsoever because he's another born again believer. That's neither here nor there. That thing that showed up within a split second, he notices I don't think he saw that until afterwards, but he notices the werewolf staring at him. He kind of jumps back, and you can see that in the camera itself.
That he steps back. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just a split second, and then he focused back in, and it's gone.
Yeah.
So this goes into something I think Kat may have touched on. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she was saying these little ones can sometimes get control of these big ones.
Yeah. They hitch a ride, supposedly, as they go through a portal or something.
Right.
Yeah. And then take control. You know, the reason I asked about the Dogman was, you know, killing Dogman. Is it even possible? Based on the two stories that I know of, I would have to say no. But that depends on whether or not those were some kind of an ethereal being that had taken a body and become physical. By taking a body, I don't mean like, you know, possessing something, but like
taking physical form.
Like the Fae, you know, taking physical form out of vegetation or whatever, and had become a physical thing. If it's one of those, I would have to say no, because it's a spirit entity of some flavor that is taken some kind of a physical form. So, yeah, and that's another thing that people confuse a lot of, is that if it's ethereal, if it's an ethereal being, well, does that mean that it's only a ghost or, you know, some kind of a spirit? Right. No, it can take a physical form.
That's why I go back to the angels in the Bible, and it was and there's another incident where these demons beat up these two brothers, ripped their clothes off.
Yeah.
What do they say? Paul I know and Jesus I know.
Yeah, but who are you? Yeah.
Right. they come in there. Oh, well, all we got to do is say Jesus and throw some demons out. Let's go.
Well, yeah.
And then
let's make some money.
Yeah, let's make some money off this Jesus stuff.
Yeah.
Then you have
the first televangelist.
Right. The ancestors of Benny Hinn there. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's ugly. I apologize, but however, then you have the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Now, angels are an invisible being on the other side of the veil as well.
Right.
They took physical form. They ate the manna with Abraham. You know what I mean? They ate manna with Abraham. They ate, all through the Bible, you see them interacting as physical beings with physical people.
It's all over. They're all over Daniel.
Yeah, all
over the book of Daniel.
And when you get to the book of Revelations, and this
the book of Revelations.
The book of Revelations.
I don't have the voice for it. But.
I mean, that book used to scare me until I figured out who the Lord really is, till he came to me. And that's the only book in the Bible that offers you a promise, folks. It offers you a blessing.
Yeah.
That tells you, that tells you who our Lord Jesus Christ is. You know, the rest of the Gospels tell us what he did, but the Revelation started telling us, it begins to reveal who he was and who he is. He that was, and he who is to come. I mean, it's all about him. But when you start putting yourself in the position of the people that write it, know that they were just men like us. I wonder what John the Revelator, I wonder what he saw, because he's seeing that with eyes just like we have, things physical and things spiritual. And it was hard for him to tell the difference, so he just wrote down and that's what the angel said. Write down what you see.
Yep, right. What you say.
And it's really, what's the word for that? The study of last things.
Eschatology.
Eschatology. I've really been getting into eschatology lately because it's fascinating to me, and you'll be surprised at what you find. The translation of beast in Genesis, because you know, in Hebrew doesn't directly translate. It's not Spanish,
right?
It's a very hard language, and you have 6 different descriptions when the Bible talks about beasts. They're talking about animals such as we have today,
like cows and
like oxen. But what he's talking about when he made the beasts of the earth after their own kind, he's talking about something different, according to the translation. Bahemah, I believe, the Bahama. That is the same thing that shows up in Revelations when the 4th rider comes. And Bob, you're the one that pointed this out to me. This wasn't, even in the King James, this wasn't an accurate translation. It wasn't a white horse. It was a green horse, which I find extremely fascinating.
You know, so you got a white horse, you got a black horse, you got a red horse, and then all of a sudden you got this thick, pale horse. I mean, come on. The word is chloros.
Chloros, like chlorophyll.
Chloros, yeah, just like chlorophyll,
which is in plants.
Yeah.
And I believe these beasts are given the authority to hurt everything except the grass and the trees, right? I'm going to try to find it to you guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to paraphrase
the trees.
But I believe that's right. And I mean, that's some pretty frightening stuff when you think about it and think about the field we're in. This 4th rider and he gives them. There's no description of who them is, who this 4th rider is giving this authority to kill with sword and with death. And that's another thing that's weird. Given the ability, death, the rider is given the ability to hand others the ability to kill with death. And then finally with the beasts of the earth. And I don't think he's talking about wolves and tigers.
No, I don't think so either. I truly do not.
Because I traced it all the way back to the constellation Lycan. And one of the Greek translations for the word.
Wolf.
Exactly. One of the Greek translations of the word is a monstrous wolf.
Yeah.
So that when I start looking into that, and that's me just studying the Bible, not listening to some boy from Hey Boy Corner talking about the Nephilim, which it's disingenuous because say that more accurate way to me would be to say that some of us believe that demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, which is a translation for earthborn, which they just happen to be giants.
Right.
They were the spawn of an unnatural spawn between angels and human women.
Yeah, the word is actually gigantes, which does not mean gigantic. And they were giants, but that's not what the word actually means. It means earthborn.
And that's why I tell people, and I didn't mean for this to turn into a Bible lesson, but everybody who knows me knows that my faith is the seed that everything's
everything's connected to it. That's the filter that we look through.
Yeah, it's a part of me. It's not just some ideas in my head. And I believe that book. Do I understand it all? Absolutely not. But I do believe it. Somebody wiser than myself once said, I don't take the Bible literally, but I take it seriously.
There you go.
Which, I mean, that still doesn't make sense to me. I'll just say I'm a Bible believing country boy.
There you go. That works. One of the things that we were talking about for this episode is what would it really take? Let's say that they truly are a physical being. Anybody here that of course we got a bunch of good country boys in the chat. How many people have shot a deer, made a good shot, maybe double lunged it, and have the thing run another 100 yards or 500 yards, or maybe not make a good clean shot, and have it run a mile or run so far that it, they actually end up losing the deer.
Right.
If you're number one, the only way I would actually pull the trigger is if that's really my only way out. And I would probably save one for my own head, just to be, so I don't get my head ripped off. Just, let's make it quick,
No, I'd fight it to the death, dude.
Yeah, I might, but it might come. I'd rather do it with my own hand than let them do it. There was, I wasn't always the good Christian boy that I am now, but especially back when I was in the Army. I'm not going to give operational details. We were in a land far, far away on the other side of the world.
All right, this is where I'm going to mute out, because your war stories are ones that I need to keep my mouth shut for and listen. Let me tell you something, folks. I'm a pretty tough guy, but this is why I say he's as tough as nails. He's seen it and been through it. Sorry, Mr. Bob.
Yeah, it's okay. That's all right. Go ahead. That's fine. So we were in a different country, long ways off, and we had 2 6-man teams out there, and I was on Overwatch, and I had climbed up on top of it was actually like a garage, like an auto shop type garage, and we were after a small group of people in this village, and this garage that I had climbed up onto had a loading dock next to it that was one of those kinds that are like dug out, and it had like a little concrete wall that kind of surrounded this loading dock, and then over the top of it was a like a metal, a steel roof building with a steel kind of like a lean-to roof over this. And what we ended up getting into was the biggest firefight that I've ever been in, period. I mean, the biggest firefight I'd ever been into, because what was supposed to be, probably anywhere from, 5 to 10 guys that we were after turned out to be the whole damn village was out to kill us. So it got ugly. It got really ugly. And I was on Overwatch, and it got to the point where the teams got split up on both sides of the street, and I ended up running out of ammunition for the rifle. I had what they call an M4 now. Back then was a Car 15, but that was slung over my back, and I'm trying to get off this roof so I'm not left out there by myself, because we're trying to we're trying to get out of there, but it's too hot for them to even bring in helicopters. So we're going to have to like run the heck out of town before we can get picked up. And as I climb off this lean-to, I tried to jump down to that wall and ended up falling down into this loading dock pit. Twisted my knee up really, really bad. I look up, and there's this guy with an AK, and he's just bringing it up to shoot me full of holes. And the only thing I had available at the time, close and handy, was a 1911 45 ACP. And I pumped 7 rounds into this guy's chest. He dropped to one knee, got up, and ran away. So when if you're out there in the woods, and let's say you go armed, I've heard people say, "Oh yeah, I take a 9mm," or I take a 40 Smith & Wesson, or "Oh yeah, I'm just carrying a little 22." What are you, insane? If you've ever seen a Bigfoot up close, the sheer size of these creatures, they're bigger than a buffalo. They're bigger than a car, and the bigger the animal, I don't care about shot placement. You like I said, you shoot a deer, even if you double lung it, the thing's going to still run another 100 yards. And all they have to do is reach out and snatch your head off. The night that I had my face-to-face encounter up there in the Sierras, I had a 45. It was the biggest thing that I had that had a quick change magazines. the only reason I didn't shoot her, because her activities there at the end got insanely aggressive, and I knew I was dead. I knew it. And, you know, I'm sitting there looking at this thing, and I'm looking at my little 45, and I'm realizing, you know, that I don't have enough gun. I kept going back to that earlier time when I'd hit this guy 7 times. Full metal jacket, you know, so they weren't hollow points, because those are against the Geneva Convention, etc. But the just the sheer size of them, you know, it's like buffalo hunting with a 22. It's just not gonna do good for you. So my only shot was maybe a shot through the mouth or something, you know. And I know this sounds really, really crude, but you have to realize that I wasn't out there Bigfoot researching. I was out there camping and fishing in an area that I used to go to many, you know, just all the time, because I lived very, very close to that, or used to live very, very close to that. I hadn't been there in about a decade. These things did not exist, or, you know, if they did, you know, that was up there, way up there by the Oregon border or something. So I'm in fact, for the next 2 years, I didn't call them Bigfoot, although everybody kept trying to tell me that that's what it was. I just referred to them simply as monsters. There's monsters in the woods. And I didn't have a big enough gun. So I sold that 45 to my brother, or brother-in-law rather, who still has that, actually, by the way. And I ended up buying a 500 Magnum, because I'd seen some of it was right when the 500s and the 460s came out. I'd seen what they would do to flesh and bone. And for the most part, it's like getting hit by a logging truck. They're insanely powerful.
Damn.
A 44 Magnum is not strong enough. Oh my God, what was his name? The guy who passed away last year. The two older gentlemen that used to go, they'd been researching a lot forever and ever together.
John Bindernagel?
No, not John. He wasn't a scientist.
Oh,
he was
okay.
at his TV show. I can't even remember the name of the TV show, because it came on after I had moved over here, and we don't have TV over here.
J.C. Johnson?
No, not that soon ago. Little bitty guy, little old guy. He takes a lot of photos if he, you know, feels like, you know, maybe something over there, and he'd take a snap of picture.
And it's not Bindernagel.
No, not Bindernagel.
You got me, bro.
Somebody in the chat's gonna know it. He and his partner were putting up, I think they were putting up either cameras or audio recorders. I think it was audio recorders, and he was out doing, I think his name starts with a D, but he was out putting up the audio recorders and or microphones in the woods, while his partner was setting up the recorder itself, you know, at another location. And one of them came up and grabbed him from behind, hit him over the head, and picked him up and threw him over. This Bigfoot picked the guy up, threw him over his shoulder, and started to walk away with it. He had a 44 Magnum on his belt. He pulls it out, sticks it to either the ribs or the back of this Bigfoot, pulls the trigger. The thing screams, throws him down, and it runs away. But it ran away. If it had wanted to, it could have just turned around and just, you know, squished his head.
That goes to the Miller document as well, I think, how they have some sort of inordinate...
Robert Dodson.
Robert Dodson?
No.
No,
that was Dodson, but no, it wasn't.
No, Dodson, I don't believe... And I've had a lot of intimate conversations with Robert Dodson. God rest him. Outstanding researcher. 10 tons of brass that man had in him.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, he was nuts. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he really was. Yeah, he was. I remember one video I'd seen. He was inside his garage, and they were running around banging on the outside of the garage.
Yeah, you can hear their feet on the ground.
Oh yeah, slap, you know, and bang. That was like, oh my goodness.
The best ones though are the ones he did in Texas, where you could see the eye shine. You can hear him pushing over trees as they're trying to make their way to him. He was being chased by these things, and still went full steam ahead.
John Barfield says Kumbo knows. Yeah, Kumbo does know the guy.
Kumbo knows everybody. Kumbo's
he does. He got scooped up and shot at Text 2517 says, and that's exactly right. He got scooped up. He got hit in the head and from behind, picked up and thrown over. The Bigfoot picked him up and threw him over his shoulder. He's a little guy, or was a little guy. Yeah, I think he's passed away about a year ago now.
So let me ask you this. How long?
44 mag ain't big enough.
No, 44 mag ain't big enough. Especially if you see one of these things, you're not gonna want to shoot it. You're gonna want to defuse the situation.
Yes, absolutely, because they're never alone.
No,
they're never alone.
If you see one alone and it's standing out in the open, tread lightly, because there's umpteenth. Who knows how many are behind?
There's at least two more, because they like to surround you in a triangle formation.
And they have some sort of cognitive awareness of how their demeanor, how they look to us, just how big and scary they are to us. They know that we're naturally afraid of us, or we're naturally afraid of them, rather. So keep that in mind, because if you see one standing out in the open and you've trekked in there like 8 miles, more than likely it wants you to see it, and it wants you to see it for a reason.
Yeah. And that's to get your attention.
Yes, for whatever reason. So the question I was going to ask you is, how long did you serve in our armed services?
12 and a half years.
12 and a half years. From your
12 and a half. And then I got medicaled out because of Panama.
And what position did you, if you can discuss it, did you have?
I was an operator at that point. They just call him an operator, even though I hadn't gone through the Q course yet. I had all the other qualifications and way too much experience. So I was in a joint. It's a joint special operations unit. So we had Navy SEALs, Air Force PJs, Marine Force Recon, Army Rangers, and Special Forces all working together. And so our teams were actually mixed, mixed groups. So you might have 2 Navy guys and a Marine and a couple of Air Force guys, and you're the Army guy that's on your team. And we were all mixed together, which is actually kind of hard, because the Navy rank insignia that they pin on the collar, I didn't understand that to save my life. To this day, I still don't, but it's crazy. Uh-oh, did I lose you? Or did I get lost here?
So anyways, I was asking you that because of this. What would you, if any advice, being a combat veteran of over 12 years, what advice?
Dallas Gilbert. Dallas Gilbert.
There you go. Why can we not think of that? Dallas Gilbert was a good
Barry Jones.
A lot of people say this and that about him. I've heard that little hen-house gossip stuff, but I've seen his evidence. I've heard the man talk. I believe him to be a good and honest man.
Yes, he was. He absolutely was. But that whole incident where he got snatched up, that really screwed with his head. And I totally get it.
It would anyone's. But what I was going to ask you is, what advice would you have for someone who wants to go out there and kill one of these things?
Don't. I honestly.
Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're never alone. And
you can't do it.
You just cannot do it.
You said something about them in the trees.
You're not going to get away with it.
Or actually, you said the cracking was coming from above you. What a lot of people don't realize is, I believe that these things do not. They don't run on the ground. They run through the trees.
You're right.
So nobody's looking up. You don't find deer in trees, and a lot of these hunters, they're going out looking for some sort of a creature that they imagine is like a bear, but it's not. And they're a whole lot smarter than a bear. They're as smart as you are.
They are, and maybe even smarter. Their heads are bigger. They got more brains in their skull.
Right. So
if it's normal, if it's truly a flesh and blood thing,
if it's truly a flesh and blood thing, and if it's not, then they have a tremendous amount of knowledge than we do.
Way more knowledge. Yeah, if they're not a real flesh and blood thing, that they're like one of these other things. And I'm not saying they are, but if that was the case, then they've got knowledge that goes back thousands of years.
Like Bob and I say, prayed up and paid up.
There you go.
Bob, I'd like to thank you. I know you're retired, and everybody say a prayer for my brother. He's going through a major surgery here pretty soon.
Yeah,
he's
I go in Monday.
Fine.
I go in Monday, and then they start cutting early on Tuesday morning for open heart.
Tech's son said a very, very awesome quote, and I'm going to end it with that as soon as I can find it. But I'd like to recognize my niece, Mysteria Jewel, from all the way from Mangum, Oklahoma. She's going to be narrating some stuff for my channel. She's a smart kid. I love you too, darling. She's in the chat with you guys. Listen to Uncle D. It makes me feel like $1,000,000. But Tech's son threw something. It was an amazing quote. And how did it go? Let's see if I can remember it. Skeptics, something about skeptics and believers. I don't know. I don't want to get it wrong. So I guess we'll just go ahead and sign off.
And thank you, everybody, for your prayers, because I could definitely use it. You know something, actually, D, before we sign off.
Yes, sir.
We needed to replace our car. Our car was just about on its last leg, so we sold it, and I bought a Mini Cooper. Something I always wanted to have one before I died, so I figured, you know, that might happen on Monday, so let's stop procrastinating about it and get it done.
Man.
But it was in a totally different part of Germany, and we're driving down this two lane highway. We're stuck in traffic is basically what we're doing. And dude, I had to pee so bad. The guy in front of us, he pulls off the side. You know, I mean, we're literally bumper to bumper. It's like the 405 freeway, you know, in rush hour traffic in LA. And he pulls over and he goes running into the woods. And I go, you know what? That's a great idea. So my sister-in-law, she's the one driving us up there. She pulls over and I jump out and I go running into the woods. And as soon as I did, the very first thing I see is this giant archway. And then I look over and there's a TP and an X and another X. And I'm like, holy crap. I just stepped
right off the highway.
Right off the highway. And it's between two relatively larger, you know, you consider it a small city. But we're talking about a strip of road that's probably, you know, 4 miles long.
I'm getting more and more reports like that, brother.
Dude, it was, I'm looking around going, oh, holy crap. And I'd go ahead and take care of business. The other guy that was in front of me, he got finished with his business, and you know, before I did, and ran back to his car. And as I'm looking around at all the structures, I look through the woods, and probably 150 yards away, there was an area where because the forest was really dark there, but there was an area where it was lighter, and I saw three of them zipping from one tree to the next. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm just like, oh my God, they're like freaking right there.
That's bananas, man. Just going through the trees.
Just from one, they're on the ground, but they're upright, and they're just jumping from one tree to the next really, really quick and hiding behind the trees. But, you know, for getting out there to shoot one, the speed, you know, that these things possess, and the reach that they have. You know, if you're 6 feet away from them, you're too close. You are, if you're 12 feet away, you're too close, because they can, you know, they're going to reach out at least 6 to 8 feet, and then they can, you know, take one step and you're in hand. Don't go out and shoot them.
We don't have the same kind of understanding that they do about their natural environment.
Exactly. You know, as far as calibers, I saw someone say 45-70. That's actually a very good caliber. 70 million dead buffalo. Couldn't be wrong. You know, that was one of the main calibers that wiped out the buffalo in the plains, and those were black powder rounds. If it can load fast, as in, you know, you got a swing out cylinder, double action, you're good. Dick Richards says 458 SOCOM, another one, because now you've got a magazine fed, really big bore, lot of power behind the round. But honestly, personal protection, but don't go hunt them, because as you are looking at that one that's showing himself, you got 2 more sneaking up behind you. Just don't do it. Don't go hunt these things.
And I mean, it's a fool's errand anyways.
It really is. It really, really is. So anyway, I again thank everybody for their prayers, and if I make it out of this, you know, if they get my heart restarted, then I'll see you guys probably in about 4 to 6 weeks. I should be back up and moving around. So thanks everybody.
Thank you very much, Bob, for coming out of retirement, and I'm glad to hear that you will be interested in coming back. I'll tell you now before your surgery, I was hoping to get it done, but I've put together a comprehensive look back at some of the research that you've done in the past. And TechSun resent me that quote that I'm going to end with.
Okay.
And it kind of it sums it up great. To the true believer, no proof is necessary. To the skeptic, no proof is possible.
There you go.
I mean, that's as simple as that is. That's the truth.
Yeah, it really
Folks,
is.
I sincerely appreciate you all joining us for this edition of The Late Show, the second part of our Killing Dogman series. Bob from Bigfoot in Germany, brother, it's always a pleasure.
Thank
Folks,
you, sir.
we will see you on the flip side.